Franklin County Fiscal Court budget work session to order. Do we need to call the roll on that?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and call the roll then.
Squire Sebastian,
Here.
Squire Blackburn,
Present.
Squire Muller,
Present.
Squire Tracy,
Here.
Squire Booth, Squire Moore,
Here.
Judge Wells.
Here, okay. This is a meeting that we've called together to review, to look at the budget. Squire Muller asked for a couple changes. So Susan, if you would, I'd like for you to lead into the changes and where we are with the budget as of the 22nd of May, please. Welcome, Susan.
Good morning, Court. In our last meeting, I received directions from the court to compile information for comparison budget perspective of the projected totals and account history trends versus what we were looking at in our last draft. I've talked with the department heads multiple times and asked for their projections, and I believe I've incorporated their projections for the year end, as well as looking at our year-to-date performance and our current year's budget operations in light of a spending freeze, and then trying to make projections for where we would end the year for our appropriation accounts, expenditure accounts in the worksheet that we have in front of you. And I presented that with a column for projected totals, and then the under over in the current year's budget. And then I had our last meeting's values, and then the where we would be today. Let's see if I can try to see the screen here. Overall, you can see the bottom line working from the forest and back into the trees. We've taken the bottom line down to if you assume all of the line item changes with the projected totals and account trend values, and some of those necessary items that we did not change, that were fixed, you can see that we took another $300,000 out of the budget. And so the total working from the today's column or value, let's see if I can get it, budget increase, decrease of 513, would be $27,477,608. You should have worksheets that have the totals on it in front of you.
You're looking at page 12, right, Susan? If you don't mind, as we look at these documents, since there's so many pages, we're looking at page 12 of this lengthy document, right? At the very back of it.
That is correct, page 12. Make sure I get this. I'm sorry, I have something collapsed or something on one of the version here that I have on the screen. I'm sorry, technical difficulties, Judge. I need to make sure I've got the right version on the screen. Overall, though, you do have the worksheet with the spending freeze totals incorporated into the document. The majority of the increase or decreases, rather, in our budget presentations have been in durable or capital line items for equipment and vehicles and otherwise repairs or improvements to our infrastructure and buildings. So over $500,000 of decreases, including equipment from the LGA and road equipment and park improvements. Any office equipment or furnitures have been stripped out for the new budget proposal. So there are significant large ticket items that are not included in the 2021 budget presentation at this point.
Susan, you also, and this is something that we rarely have done in all of our years, you cut overtime, didn't you? Didn't you cut overtime back as well?
That is correct, Judge. There was a discussion at the last court, and I incorporated that into the presentation of this budget. And for example, the road department typically budgets 5% overtime. Took that back to 3%. And there were a couple other administrative departments that had some contingency for overtime. I removed that. So that was about $42,000 worth of overtime that was removed from the budget.
Okay. Any other highlights that you'd like to go over before we bring in questions and concerns?
I did receive a late notice projection from the coroner yesterday. So those numbers in your packet may be a little different on his projections versus what I had penciled in. So we'll need to incorporate those. And Judge, if you don't mind, I need to get the right file open. I've got multiple files open, so I'm gonna unshare the screen and address that if you want to have discussion at this point.
Yeah, that'll be fine. I just want you to address any changes, overall changes or anything else that you want to address before we get into the meat of the budget.
All right, here we go. Can you see the document on the screen now?
No. Lambert, you can? Okay, yeah. We can't see it yet.
Here we go. You can't see it?
Not yet.
About now.
There we go. Got it
There we
now.
go. Sorry about that. And court, I'm leaving it in this view if you like, or I can narrow it down. But I did provide totals in your court documents on the expense budget worksheet by categories, which is one of the guidelines that we have from the state to do by categories. We can look at the overall decreases, but backing into it, we can start from the bottom line and move back up through the funds. As you know, we're organized by fund. I made no changes in the capital debt service funds. We're still assuming the purchase of a fire truck. I did make a change in a pass-through fund for tourism, whereas in conversations with the Tourist Commission and also our own experience and what we handled in this that passes through us, that we turn over directly to the Tourist Commission and to pay a bond for the Grand Theater. I did make a slight adjustment from our last meeting of a decrease of $25,000 in our handle on that money. But again, that's a pass-through, so there's really no budgetary impact on us for that, except for the fact that we handle the money. So, and then I made no changes in the presentation of the sheriff's budget from the last time around. Again, the sheriff's office is, we cover their benefits and overhead that's already incorporated, and same thing with the clerk's fund. The jail fund, the only decrease that was made was on, I think, food. The jailer offered some additional savings onto the jail budget on food, but no other changes were made in the version that you see. And the fire fund, I did not present any changes to the fire fund budget based on projections or account trends at the direction of Squire Mueller that wanted to just see, I guess, the impact in the other areas of county services. The no changes from our last meeting to LGA. So that takes us really to the road fund, and there are, based on the methodology of looking at the let's see, of who is the projections, let's see, for the year to date versus our account trends, and in light of the spending freeze, it gives significant decreases for any draft value. So there, I know is concern with the road superintendent if we did adopt such a budget going forward, that there would be some very restrictive limitations to his ability to maybe operate with any kind of comfort level for performing his services. So I don't know if you want to start with the road fund and work back into it, Judge, or if you want to go by line item.
Sure.
Or what the best method is, but I would just ask is if we can come to, if there's a blended version of these three versions of the budget that we've been discussing, that we can come to a consensus about what our proposed budget will be for voting purposes, and then incorporate those into a defined line item. But basically this column P, or the draft for the meeting today is where we are at with incorporating the projected totals versus the 2020 budget.
And I might add that as we go through department heads, if you have any questions or concerns, this is the time you should speak up as we're going through your particular department. Squire Sebastian?
I just have one question for the treasurer. Madam Treasurer, you mentioned that we pay money from the tourism line item is a pass-through to the tourism group, as well as to pay a bond for the Grand Theater. Can you tell us how much is remaining on that bond? I just couldn't find it in this document. I was just trying to make sure I knew what the remaining balance was on that bond.
That is not our debt because it is a revenue bond, so I do not have the principal, outstanding principal on that in my mind at this time to be able to share that number with you, but I can certainly find out.
Yes, please. I was just trying to figure out how much longer that arrangement of fiscal court working with the grant to take care of that bond is still in force.
Judge, I'd like to say something here.
Yes, sir.
When that is paid off, that tax goes away.
That's correct. That's correct. That additional
So
tax
that's
was,
not money. That's not money to look forward to.
yeah.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to understand how long we're going to continue to pass that through to the grant, just for my own edification.
I know it's several years because not too long ago, I believe under the other court members, he came in and refinanced the bond. And so that saved some money and allowed him to use that money to put back into the theater itself. So I don't know that time, but we'll find that out. We'll get that out to you. Okay, Susan, if you would continue on. You're in road.
Yes. Again, I've already identified that I removed or reduced the overtime contingency in the road workers line item. And then I'm presenting, there were a couple of structural changes where we moved some of the expenses. This reimbursable expense looks like a decrease in the road budget, but it's reflected now in the general fund budget. That's the transport of non-public school students. The same thing with our solid waste and litter program. We're not doing away with that. We're just reconfiguring that so that it will be shown in the general fund. So those are, two rather significant items that kind of make that budget decrease for the road look, it's inflated. We'd already had the discussion about salt and reducing that, again, wrap that into the total. But the office materials and office supplies was a point of discussion in the last meeting. Overall, I'll say I took, based on projections and account trends, I reduced the version by $11,000 between all funds and departments in this presentation in office supplies. So we really tightened that up significantly. The fuel prices have been down. Again, the number that I have in the discussion today is based on a projected total, and account trends obviously fluctuate based on pricing, and we are in a very low period right now, so that can make that a little bit more tricky. But again, these numbers are wrapped in, so I would really like to hear specifics from the court and specific direction from the court about how they want to proceed, and if you want to go line by line, Judge, I can.
Well, I think let's do okay, Susan, let's do an overview before I go down the line with magistrates, if you would. That's just, now you're in road. If you want to go into any other departments, let's do that, and then we'll have the magistrates' concerns addressed.
I will, I'd like to share, again, I said that the coroner provided some updated numbers for me late yesterday afternoon that did not get incorporated into your packet, but I think he reached out to you directly. So I've updated the projection values from the coroner. The number that I was using is higher than his projected in office supplies, but less than the 2020 budget. And he is anticipating, I guess, using all of his fuel and maintenance budget before June 30th. And I had a lower figure, and same thing, we're very close on our office equipment. So very slight change, I guess, between what the coroner's distribution of his spending would be in the upcoming budget from what was presented in your packet.
Okay.
But other than that, Judge, I think
You're ready for discussion?
I think definitely ready for some feedback from everybody that votes.
Okay, we're gonna go this route, in this order. Squire Muller, you'll be first. Squire Tracy, Squire Booth, if she gets on, Squire Moore, Squire Sebastian, and then Squire Blackburn. So, Squire Muller, you're first with your questions and concerns.
Good. Susan, thank you again for all your hard work. I know this has been a tough time for everybody, especially you. Can I just ask something before I kind of get started? So the 2020 budget's at $27,863,014, correct? And then the proposed budget is $27,477,608. So really, we've only decreased roughly 1.1%. Is that accurate to say?
From a numeric standpoint, that is correct, but we were incorporating $900,000 in new borrowed money. So numerically, there's a lot of back and forth between increases and decreases, which I believe in one of the versions I provided, I isolated out and pointed out that fact that we had to have, in order to have a $300,000 decrease, or $300,000 decrease in a budget and incorporate $900,000, basically we had to cut 1.2 million, okay? So, when you start doing those percentages and presenting it that way, it is rather skewed and doesn't hit the meats of the issue.
Okay, all right. So Judge, how do you want to do this today? Do you want me to just kind of list my bullet points, or how do you want to do it?
Whatever, however you want to present it.
Okay, so I have, two main things. And like I said, I mean, we're here doing, hopefully, the best work we can for the citizens of Franklin County, making some tough decisions because of everything that's going on. I've done a lot of research, surrounding counties, things like that. You know, people's budgets are being turned in at 20-25% from last year. And Susan, I appreciate that clarification with the fire truck, and I appreciate that. So my two big things, just to kind of get this conversation started today, and it's a tough conversation. I would like to see take-home vehicles, except for first responders, ended. You know, one of our big expenses is fuel maintenance and vehicles. And I think the longer we can preserve what vehicles we have, the better off we have. And then I would like to start a conversation about, unfortunately, you know, some part-time employees not being brought back for the 2021 season because of the situation we're in right now. And what I have down in my notes would be basically park personnel, fiscal court, and bookkeeper part-time. So if the other magistrates want to speak on it, I'm sure the department heads aren't going to be happy with me, but I'm just trying to do what's best for us right now. So I'd love to hear some feedback from Judge, you, and everybody else.
Let's start with the department heads when you talk about take-home vehicles. Let's see, John Mitchell, Chief Robert Hewitt.
Well, Judge, if I could, I would say first responders to me would be fire department, police, road department, because they get called out all the time, you know, with trees being down and stuff like that. So, you know, I was thinking anyone except that, per se.
Well, I think the misunderstanding here is that they're driving their vehicles all day long, anytime, and they're not. They're driving them to and from work, and that's it. And so, but I'll let. So that would mean John Mitchell, Robert Hewitt, and if you all want to speak up to the need for your vehicles, taking them home. John, you want to go first?
Judge, may I? This is Susan. I'm sorry to redirect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I appreciate the policy discussion. Certainly we need these kinds of discussion, but I'm not sure how we would ultimately translate that into a budget change going forward. Certainly we may recognize savings, but to quantify and pick which number we're going to use in the budget going forward, is that, I'm not sure where that would make a difference.
You're not really saving anything, I would assume, is what you're saying.
Oh, I'm just commenting, so I'm not sure how that makes a difference in what line item value we have for a budget.
Okay.
For an estimate and a plan.
Okay.
Okay, so if we just want to, I mean, I still think that needs to be addressed. So then if we just want to look at part-time personnel, and I know the department heads are going to speak against my recommendation because, you know, we're having to go through this budget. So I guess I'd maybe like to hear from you, Judge, or some of the other magistrates. I know that I talked to Ken Bishop. I went and actually looked at Lexington Golf Course yesterday. Proponent of cutting a lot of park paths and stuff.
Hold on, Squire Muller. Somebody's really got some feedback.
Quiet.
I'm not sure who that is.
I think it's Brittany.
Okay. All right. Squire Muller, start from the beginning, please.
Well, I guess if we're gonna start talking about part-time personnel, I'd like to hear from you, Judge, and probably the magistrates. I know that obviously the department heads are gonna speak against it. But like I said, we're in a position now where we need to make the decisions. I guess that's where we go next.
Okay. I'll be happy to speak about part-time personnel. People working up front, we've got 2 people up front, $22,000 to answer the phones, to greet people. We're spending several thousand, I don't know how much, Jeremy, but to close that area in to keep them safe through COVID money. And it is imperative that we have somebody at the front desk once we open this the office up to greet people. 22,000 is really a minor part to that piece of part-time people. The next thing is Susan will attest that that the lady that helps her is vitally needed. So then you go to parks. Now, I think we're rapidly becoming, if we're gonna, number one, if we cut all part-time people at the park, we will not be able to open the golf course, and we will not be able to maintain the park the way we would like. So if we're going to start doing that, then we're going to need to have another discussion on really do we want to keep the park open, because right now there'll be no inmates, and if we can't keep the park up like we want it to be, then maybe we need to look at quite honestly, I think we need to look at merging the parks and let the city and the county work together in merging the parks, because if we're not going to be able to keep the park up, if we can't keep the grass cut, we can't keep the golf course open, then we're going to have a lot of issues that we're going to have to deal with. It's going to cost us more in the long run. So that's my opinion. You asked for it, so I gave it. I think Charlie Lewis he's already talked about cutting 3 part-timers, which bare bones him. And to keep the golf course open, it's going to take 3 people to in there during peak times to keep bathrooms clean, carts clean, and to run the operation. So Charlie has worked out a plan for that. He's doing all he can, but I know you've talked about cutting the part-time people, but I do think it is important that we keep our beautiful Lakeview Park pristine and keep it up. Or otherwise, if we cut everybody out, we're not going to be able to do it. So that's my opinion. And if you're ready, we'll start. Squire Muller, you've made 2 suggestions. We appreciate your suggestions. Squire Tracy.
Thank you, Judge. Again, I think we all understand that we've got to make tough decisions, and we're here, and we've obviously heard from the department heads multiple times. I do got a couple questions for Jay Labana, if he's on the line.
Yes, sir.
Morning, Jailer. Thank you for joining us. Just a quick question. During our last budget discussion, you made mention that the jail was currently at 48 employees, and that you could and would maintain the professional level of service at that facility with that number. Are you still at 48?
No, sir. I'm actually down a few. I have some applications. I haven't hired anybody yet because we're maintaining. They've asked me. You all asked me to stay at 48, and I'm actually below 48. So I haven't hired anybody as of now. We've done some interviews, but we haven't hired anybody.
Okay, gotcha.
I think my number's at 46 right this minute. I need to hire a couple, but I'm just kind of waiting to see how this budget goes.
Right, I got you, I understand. Do you feel confident in 48? You feel confident in that number?
At this
Once you get there.
Squire, I do, with my numbers where they're at. I've talked to the Jailers Association, this week. They're gonna revisit everything in about 2 weeks, because they're trying to get inmate, community service back out on a, skeleton kind of crew. And where we can trade inmates a little bit, but they're gonna revisit that the first of the month. So if my numbers stay where they're at, then I can function at 48. And when the courts open up and we start getting a ton of inmates in here, we may have to revisit it, but I'm doing the best that we can right now to try to, do it. And that does, I've had a conversation with Susan, is it better to have more employees or a little bit more overtime? And she's telling me overtime. So, and we're not just letting people work overtime. If somebody goes to the hospital or something, then we have to do what we have to do. If that answers your question.
Right, okay, great, thank you. With that being said, could you give the court some idea of how the jail is currently staffed per shift, both, on the secure side and the unsecure side? During the day, like, you run 2 shifts on the secured side. Could you give us some information on how you're doing that? How many employees?
We've minimized the shifts. They were built to have 8 per shift on the secure side, and we've got 2 with 6 right now and 2 with 7. Is that correct? That's correct, and that goes day by day. I've got a couple staff members off on FMLA. I've got one in the National Guard. So I've still got staff that are employed that aren't here, that we just have to deal with. And I've got 6 part-time spots. I've got 5, and one of them is minimal. Like, he only works a few hours. He's my evidence technician. He works maybe 4 hours a month. And then the rest of them are community service and Class D. And Class D will be so valuable when it comes time to get revenue back in here.
Okay. So I guess as far as inmates, obviously, I guess there's been several that have, according to the news and stuff, that have been several that have been released over time, state, and things of that nature. I guess my biggest question back to you again is that 48 number, because obviously, with you being there for quite some time now, I just want to make sure you feel comfortable at that 48.
With the numbers we're at now, and KJ did say the other day the governor's not planning on releasing any more early releases, other than normal releases on the state inmate side. So we should be kind of plateaued with releases. With the numbers I have now, I can function at 48. If we get back up in the 300 plus, then we may have to revisit that.
Okay.
I feel safe right now with the staff at 48 with the numbers we have now, if that answers your question.
Squire Tracy, you have any more?
Yeah, there was one, on your federal, I believe it was on your federal inmates. I want to say you had projected 108,000 as far as revenue. I believe is what it was. I'm trying to find it right now.
That's it. I'm looking at it, projected 108 down from 223.
Okay, all right.
I hope that's low, Squire.
Okay. The reason I'm asking about the 48, obviously, is right now on the books, you're at 52. So, you know, my question revolves around those 4 additional employees in that line item. Again, I think safety and security, it needs to be a top priority. So that's why I'm asking about the 48. And then if you could, if you feel confident in that number.
At this time, I do, with my numbers being down about 45 to 40%. If we go
Right.
back to normal business, I would not. And
So
I
if
mean,
you-
normal business, I mean, when we start, our doors start, when the courts open back up and the renting agencies start bringing a whole lot of people in here, and we get back up around 320 or so, then I would have some concerns at 48, and I would be asking you all for help.
So give me an idea on, 4 individuals. So say you're at 48 and you're currently at 6 and 6 and 7 and 7. If you had 52, how would they just go up by one number? So they would go
No.
to 7?
Like, the secure side would go, 4 shifts of 8. That's how it's designed, is 4 shifts of 8. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
But during the day, we can get by with one less usually because we have admin staff that can go help out. And right now, you know, we're not transporting a whole lot. Everything's being done by video, so we have more bodies here. When transport's busy, we got 2 people that are usually gone. So we're trying to utilize everybody we can to help out with shift as much as possible.
Okay, I got you. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your questions, Squire.
Judge Wells, my next question is
Yes, sir.
for Jeremy.
Okay,
Jeremy, you there, buddy?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for being on the line with us. During the last budget discussion, you touched on having 2 major projects to do. Would you touch on those and let us know what they are?
I had to, which projects were you talking about? I don't. got-
During the budget discussion,
cleaning.
you had made
clean the
mention
building.
that you couldn't see anything being reduced because you had a couple of major projects that needed to be done.
Well, just, you know, we've been working, trying to update the appearance of buildings, you know, the county clerk, he's wanting to do some work, you know, to make the appearance a lot better and functionality of the counters. The counters are breaking down where the tellers are, and, just multiple things, and there's more than just 2, you know.
Okay, do you have a cost estimate on that as far as, I know the clerk, they put up some new,
it's already in your budget.
glass protection, in between the customer and the clerks. So do you have any idea what those projects would cost?
They're,
Do you have any hard numbers per se?
no, I haven't. I mean, we've talked to a couple people, I mean, they're up in the thousands, you know.
We don't know how much it's gonna cost to do Jeff's, what we've just finished down in there.
Oh, yeah, that, I'm
Yeah.
talking about the actual teller count, where the drawers and all are all
okay.
broke.
Okay,
I mean, they're thousands of dollars to fix all that, 6,000-7,000.
Right. During these financial times, do you think those floors, do you think they are a priority, or do you feel like that they should be done as a priority?
No, I wouldn't think, I mean, it's not an emergency or something, anything, but, you know, it's something that's eventually gonna have to be done, you know.
Right, no, I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just asking if you have a list, is that at the top of your list, the floors?
Yeah, we've been trying to do them for a few years now, but other things come up. I mean, it's just on my list, you know, it's not an emergency or anything, but it's just one of the things that's been on my list for a few years now, but, you know, I just never get to it.
Right, okay. Man, it's been great to get that done while they were closed.
One of my line items was, I believe, cut from 8,000 to 3,000, which is 321. And that's the maintenance on this building. what I've been using a big portion of that for at the end of the year is to fix these front windows out here. They're rotted, and, you know, it's up around $3,000 just to fix each window. And we had to fix one last year, and it was completely rotted, and the glass was, you know, just hanging out of it. And you take a big 8-foot tall piece of glass hanging out there, it's gonna, you know, eventually fall. So a big part of that's been used the past couple of years to get these windows fixed. You know, I try to do one each year, but, you know, this year I decided not to. That's why my projected amount was real low, but, you know, next year I'm gonna need that money to do that, or, you know, they're eventually just gonna completely rot. We have to keep our buildings up.
Right, and I think to touch on the treasurer's point, you know, it's really nice when projects are needed, that they're noted. That way, when we're going through these sheets, we see that, oh, okay, he's replacing a window a year, da-da-da-da-da, and we can, you know, the justification's there. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. You have anything else, Squire?
No, you know, Judge, just other than the fact that, again, you know, we've heard from all the department heads, and we appreciate all their hard work and the treasurer's hard work, your hard work, and ultimately we're here because we don't know how bad the future as far as revenue is going to be affected. We do know it's going to be affected. If you turn the TV on or you read a paper anywhere in the state or country, you know revenues are not good. So again, we've got tough decisions to make, and we just need to get to making them.
Yeah. But Squire Booth, I'm gonna come to you in a second. But so I think that leads to an important question for you, Susan Lawrenson, being the treasurer of our funds here in the with the fiscal court. Do you think this budget is an adequate budget that we could live with and start the year with and make changes to if needed and get us going into the starting in July with the fiscal court with the unknown that's out there? Susan, I'd like for you to answer that question, please, to the best of your ability.
Yes, I think we have a responsible group of leaders at fiscal court who make decisions every time they meet about spending, and are, I think in the day-to-day business that we have responsible leadership with the judge and the department heads and the elected officials at the jail and the coroner's office who are and the sheriff's office who are spending the county tax money. And I think that if we have any one of the three versions of this draft budget, that we would still have their attention and concerns on being frugal in their day-to-day spending. The draft that we have today just enforces that more on the spending authority side by line item and a line item budget. And yes, I think we could operate with this version of the budget to get started. And do I think that based on the realities of the coming months and as that, you know, becomes more evident of where we are and the needs, that the decisions could be made by fiscal court either to increase or decrease. As far as Squire Muller's comment about specific policies, that is actually a very good method of putting further controls on just on a document. I mean, the document that we have is just some sort of plan, but the policies that are in place for executing that plan can be very powerful and having further limitations, as we saw with the emergency order and the freeze, even with a financial plan. So the combination of the two will make this work.
Okay. So, Squire Tracy, you brought up a great point, so I thought you all ought to hear how Susan felt. Okay, Squire Booth, can you hear us? Yeah, unmute.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, it's your turn for any questions pertaining to anything on the budget.
No, I don't have any questions on the budget. It seems very fair to me. And it's amazing, when you see the budget, you realize how much we are responsible for. And it's kind of, jaw-dropping, I guess, is the only word I can think of. But I have no questions, and I have no further suggestions for reducing the budget.
Well, before we move on from you, Squire, we want to say happy birthday to you yesterday, and I hope you had a nice birthday.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't celebrate birthdays anymore, but I'm glad I have them.
I understand that. Squire Moore. Squire Moore?
Gotcha. All right. How about now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Seems like we're always cutting the road department to me, and this time of year, it's probably not the busiest time, but the blacktop plant's just opening, and what they've spent so far this fall is, and this spring is not a good measurement on what they need, I don't think. They probably haven't been doing any of the blacktopping they would be doing right now. And as far as take-home vehicles, I'm sure that there may be some we can cut, but the road department, different ones like that, if they have an emergency call out and John or Stephen have to go to it, and they have to go down to the office and get the truck out, unlock the gate and all that, it just adds time. I know the plant board tried this several years ago and it backfired on them. It took 2 hours to do a 30-minute job. And then as far as the front desk, we definitely don't want a full-time out there, and those part-timers save a lot of money as far as having people not walking around. That's why we put them out there, is people were walking around the building unannounced and nobody knew what they were doing or where they were going. And, you need somebody to direct people in the building, and that's why they're there, that and answering the phones and directing those calls too.
Okay.
One thing we could do out at the park is start a lottery system or some kind of a pull your name out of the hat to come and cut the hay. I don't think we need to make any money on it. We could just save money as far as not having to mow certain areas out there. But there's a lot of things like that we don't have to do in the budget. We can do through day-to-day operations. And like some input from Jeremy on the take-home vehicles. I know one of his vehicles, the guy's got his personal tools in, and I don't think you would want those tools sitting down here in a parking lot somewhere. They're safer at someone's house where they keep an eye on them. So,
Jeremy?
Actually, our work trucks
Go
do
ahead,
stay
Jeremy.
here. Our work trucks do stay here.
the service truck with
Yeah.
the boys' tools in
Yeah,
it?
he lives in Chevyville, so I don't allow him to drive it home. And
Okay.
we just keep it, it's, both of them are at the courthouse under cameras.
Yeah, well, that's good.
But Mark, he drives his home, and, I've tried getting him a raise, last court a couple times, and they kept turning it down, just because he does have a vehicle to drive home.
Right.
So if he gets that vehicle taken away, I'll be asking for a raise for him.
Right. And doesn't he have to go to the post office at
Yeah.
off times of the
Yeah.
evening and day?
Yes, he leaves from here at 3:30, goes to the post office, and early in the morning, he goes, checks before he comes in. And, you know, it's just not driving straight home from here. He does his errands before.
Right, yeah, I know that. And I know, at the park, we've already cut 3 part-time jobs out there, which will help. It's just a great big puzzle, and, a lot of it can be done through department heads, through the judge executive. We've got a pretty good budget here, I think. That's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you, Squire Moore. Squire Sebastian?
Thanks, everybody. We've had some, you know, really good, healthy discussions. We do know that our, one major source of revenue, which is occupational taxes, it's vulnerable. And we'll probably expect to see increased demand for services as the economic fallout from the pandemic that we're going through. It deals a blow to family budgets. We're all feeling it. Small business owners who are our neighbors, you know, they're feeling it. And a lot of their dreams are kind of hung out there in the wind at this point. You know, we've all said it, our resources are extremely stretched. But I do want to say that these discussions have been really extremely important because they focus and are focusing us on the county's core mission, which is the health, the safety, well-being, and the infrastructure needs of Franklin County. And they've been roundly criticized by some who evidently don't watch our meetings to hear how thoroughly we're looking at this. But all in all, I think they've been very healthy discussions. They've been very open discussions about preparing for the economic impact that we're going to have. And we know it's coming. I mean, but unfortunately, we don't know how severe this is going to be. And I think the last few weeks, this body has been extremely transparent as it discusses the steps that we're going to have to take on how to align our spending with the inevitable decline in the revenue. I think Susan's been clear on that as well. So I appreciate everybody who's spoken very candidly about the extent of the reductions and how it's going to impact their respective departments. And I appreciate how flexible people are being in offering up some things to help our county and how it's going to move forward into this situation of uncharted territory that we have. So with that said, I know, you know, Lambert or Squire Moore, you've just mentioned the road department, and I appreciate our road superintendent stepping up and saying, you know, we have a stockpile of salt. We talked about this last time. We got a stockpile of salt. We can cut some of that back. You know, if we, in looking at our weather patterns the last few years, if we think we're where we need to be, you know, is that an area that we look at a little bit more? And again, I'm open to hearing from the road superintendent on that. I think one of the core missions of the road department is to go out and maintain county roads. And I find that, and we've heard several stats say that they're spending quite a bit of time on limb pickup. So I don't know how those two things necessarily coincide unless a tree has fallen over the road that we need to be dealing with. And I would really like to see us, you know, focus the resources that we have on the core mission of the road department, which is to maintain the county roads for the health, safety, and well-being of our citizens. So how we look at our budget to do that, I think is very important. I think the judge mentioned about the park, and I'll be firm in this point. In my mind, I see no situation where we are more than the collaboration that we have with the city at this point, merging our park system. I'm unclear, you know, where that came from, but I do think if, you know, I'm not sure how we continue on with golf services. I think Squire Muller brought up that we let some of the land go fallow, like some of the other parks across the state are doing, especially on golf courses. I think like the one, if you go up 421 Leestown Road, the UK system, the golf course there, they let a lot of the area, the rough, really be rough. And so maybe we are spending a lot of our effort, and our equipment time doing some of that very meticulous mowing that maybe we could let some of this go back to the wild. And I think Squire Moore and Squire Muller mentioned, there's a way for somebody to come out and take hay off of that lovely park that we have. So I would like to see a little bit of, thought and a little bit of discussion kind of going back into that. I think one area we have not touched on, is the social agencies. I think we started down that path, at one point, and I at least know, I was in the middle of going through something, very difficult, and I didn't have those papers with me at that time. I have them now, and I do think that's something that we need to look at. Last year, I think the judge led that discussion, and shared some recommendations to reduce some of the agencies due to duplication of services. And that is an important point as we look, again at this year. For me, services to youth, services to seniors, I think they have never been more important than they are right now, because we all know the impacts that we're dealing with personally. And so, we need to find a way to work with those social service agencies, again, to fill in the gaps that we are wholly unable to take care of, and that social agencies do. So I would like to see us spend a little bit of time today talking about those.
All right, Squire, while we have you on the line, Susan, if you can tell us what page the social agencies are on, the charity organizations, and we'll all turn to that if you want to go through there, Squire, and tell us what you're thinking.
Well, I think Ann had provided a document to us, and I, truly appreciate that. I think it's very invaluable, rather than to get a document that just has the name of the organization and a number out beside it. Ann was so gracious this year to provide us with information about the organization itself, give us a little bit of history about expenditures in the past. And I know Susan always does a good job on getting that to us in an Excel spreadsheet, but we this year have a little bit more detailed information. And I think that's important as we go through this process. So I don't know if everybody has that available.
Well, let's see if we can get that. Susan, do you have that? Do we have that document anywhere, Susan?
I'll work on finding it and get it up on screen for discussion. If Ann's there, maybe she can talk to the issue in the meantime.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to be clear. The one thing I don't want to do, as we're looking at this whole of the budget, and do we need to lock down what we're going to do with county government, rather than going out there in this instance and handling these first, because we've had one entity that's come in and has asked the court to put its needs above every other line item in county government. And singling out that one line item out of about 400, and asking entities to be put before what we have to do as a county, before protections to persons and people. I don't want to abandon looking at the entire county government picture before we specifically handle these things. So I just want to make that statement, because I think our overall county budget is the critical thing, but I don't want to lose sight of taking this up as a part of that. I guess that's what I'm meaning, Judge.
And so, can I ask you to clarify what entity wants us to make them the top entity over everything in county government? I don't know who you're talking about, what you're talking about.
Well, Judge, you've had KCDC come before us a couple of times at this point, asking us to separate them out from the rest of reviewing county government.
Well,
and I think I was clear last year, and I remain clear this year. I think it's really important for us to look at overall budget rather than taking one entity in front of someone else. So I'm just trying to stay with that point here, but I know we haven't discussed this at all in the grand scheme of the county budget. So I'm only making that point. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm gonna make it very clear that we have not asked KCDC to be above anybody else in county government. We have only followed our administrative code that requires them to come to us and present a budget and requires us to vote up or down on them. So I'm sorry that that statement was made. I disagree with it, but you're welcome to make your own statements. Now,
Right,
Just for
you
clarification.
make one to counter what I'm saying, and that's the whole point of this. This is a give and take. But I don't want to allow someone to overstate, anything because they have come before us at twice now because they are required to present only. So my point has been all along, and I stay with that today. I want to consider everything, not single one entity or 5 entities out. I want to look at the entire picture of the ask of county government.
I think
Thank you.
thank you.
And y'all, Judge, this is Rick. I just wanted to clarify the rule under which Cecina operated for presentation. It's not the administrative code. It was the enabling or the creating ordinance that set forth the time frame that they have to present. Just for clarification, it is not the code that determined that. It was their original ordinance.
Sorry, okay. Okay, now, Squire Sebastian, we have, Susan, can you put this list up on the, board of, requests and statutory contributions? Susan? Where'd you get this?
I printed
Yes, I'm working on it.
Okay, can you make sure she's got
it.
this?
She has it. I sent it yesterday. It just took
Okay.
a minute to print it.
Okay,
Hey, Judge, let me
Yes.
ask if would it be appropriate to let JW discuss, or Squire Blackburn discuss any of the things that he
Sure.
has
okay,
in relation to the overall county budget?
Yeah.
Because I think that's where we started.
Yeah.
My only point was I didn't want to lose sight that we haven't done that so before we conclude our discussions today, this is a piece of it.
okay,
That's all I was,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you so much.
good point, okay. Squire Blackburn?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Good. I want to really thank Susan tremendously. She's done a whole lot of work. I know they printed a whole lot of paper, sending different drafts for us, and she's been very good about creating documents that show the things that we'd like to see. I think all the magistrates are pretty much in the same thought process with take-home vehicles. There's certain ones like the road department that gotta have them. And I just saw the other day, UK has stopped all take-home vehicles for the University of Kentucky. So there's things we need to look at, and I know some of those are policy issues. I agree with everybody on most of these issues. The general welfare, safety, and the quality of life. I don't think we need to diminish that at all. With our seniors and our youth, I believe those programs are paramount, and we can't back off on those. Especially ones like the court advocated social worker. They're huge. But I do agree with Squire Sebastian on duplication of services. I know the judge brought that up last year. I feel like we have some of that in these requests. And that's something that I think it's appropriate. I think we were going down the road that I wanted to go down. So if we want to go back to that document, that's where I'm at.
okay. Susan, can you bring the document back up on social agencies? Okay. All right, can everybody see that? Can everybody see it? Starting with CASA, if you'll go up to CASA, Susan. Okay, there's the first one. CASA's the first one. Now, the way we've done it is that you need, if you want to eliminate or cut, you need 4 votes to do that, and we will we'll ask for the number of votes as we go down the line for cutting. And if you want any more information, if you want me to read information about them, I'll be happy to do that because I have it here. So we'll start with CASA. Would you like for me to read any information about CASA?
I think you should. Just so we have-
Okay, I'll do it anyway, just for the sake of people that are listening to this on Facebook. So here's CASA. CASA's mission is to speak for the abused and neglected children in the courtroom. The court appoints a special advocate for these children. If funding is approved, monies will be used to expand program to provide more services, including recruiting and training volunteers to work with children. In 2019-20, they received $20,500. They're requesting the same amount. Squire Sebastian?
I was just gonna say, Judge, I would like to see them funded flat.
What does that mean, funded flat? You mean no increase or?
Right, same amount.
Same amount.
What terminology would you like for me to use? I
Sa-
just wanna make sure
yeah,
we all
sa-
understand it.
Same amount or decreased would be great. Same amount. So
I'm in for the same amount.
okay, we'll go
And that's
with
what we said before, we would do the same amount on all of them, so going back over, we'll decide if we want to cut them or
Yeah.
stay with the same amount.
that's right. Initially, when we talked about this a couple budget meetings ago, we determined that we wanted to keep them the same and not increase anybody. So as we go down, thank you, Squire Moore, I believe you're exactly right. If you want to increase or decrease, just bring that up. And are there any other questions on CASA? Any other questions on CASA? Hearing none, we'll move to the next one. Coalition of Committed Christians. The purpose of this grant request is to assist the expenses incurred in the operation of the men's shelter and the soup kitchen. This agency served over 51,000 meals in 2018 and expanded their services to donating food and clothing to the public. These funds will be used toward food and kitchen supplies at the soup kitchen and bus passes, clothing and shoes for men in the honor program who are maintaining full-time employment. I'm sorry about that pause. Last year they received, in 2019-20, they received $13,000. They're requesting $20,000. Are there any requests to increase or decrease the soup kitchen request? Squire Muller.
Judge, thank you. 2 things. Could we just run down the list? It's already 12:15. I mean, I think we all have this in front of us as far as the mission. If that would be okay, no disrespect. I would say leave them the same. That's my vote.
Yeah, and that's fine. So you're wanting to keep them the same, Squire Muller? Squire Moore, you're wanting to keep them the same? Okay. Anybody else want to keep them the same? Squire JW? Okay. I thought, Squire Sebastian, you wanted to go through these. I'm sorry, Squire Sebastian, I was doing that. Okay, then we're going to keep them the same. I'll go back through now. I'll ask for. Let's go back to part-time. That was something that came up. And pardon me.
I'm sorry. I think you misunderstood me. I think we still need to run through them. I just am saying maybe we don't need to read the mission of each of them. I think just to move it along, we should run through it.
Ah, okay. All right, so let me rephrase the question. Are there 4 votes to run through them to discuss them? Now, there's 1 vote. there's 2 votes, 3 votes.
I don't know what I'm saying here.
Okay.
Yes, we just go down the line. If anybody has a question about any of them, speak up.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll leave it the same.
Okay, all right. Everybody okay with that? All right, that's what we were heading, but I thought you said let's don't do that. Okay,
I think we just didn't want you reading what all of them do.
you got it. I'd be more than happy not to do that, so. All right, now we've started with CASA, we did the soup kitchen. Any changes with the soup kitchen, up or down? Seeing none, downtown Frankfurt, they're asking for 8,000, they're requesting 12,000, and we gave them 8,000 last year. Request? Okay, seeing none, Squire Blackburn?
Yeah, this is one, I feel like that we have several agencies within our community that are trying to do the exact same thing. This is a duplication of services. I know they just hired a new, director with about a $25,000 pay increase. And I think they, when they veered away from the Main Street program, I felt like we weren't informed about it. It was a level of accountability that was lost that I thought was important. I did speak with the director, and he explained why. And but I do think this is an agency that's kind of going in the direction they want to go. With county and city funds. So I think this is something we can look at.
But, okay, we're at a point where we need to decide what we want to do, up or down. It sounds like you're thinking more down than you are up, or do you want to leave it the same? Do you have a recommendation, Squire Blackburn?
I'm thinking down. I'd like to hear from the other magistrates as well on this issue.
Okay, would anybody else like to, Squire Booth, you have your hand up?
Yes, I agree with Squire Blackburn wholeheartedly. I believe that the people that are running businesses downtown are capable of increasing the business themselves. And I don't think that downtown Frankfurt serves any purpose other than to coordinate perhaps some advertising. And the businesses can fund that. Also, I know we haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm confused about the downtown Frankfurt events funding. I thought that we had not, oh, okay, I see, it has been cut, all right. That is true, right?
Yes.
The events funding has been cut.
Yes, been eliminated.
Okay, well, that's all I can say.
Squire Tracy, I saw your hand up earlier.
Thank you, Judge. Yes, I would too agree with both Squire Blackburn and Squire Booth. I think that once downtown Frankfurt got away from the Main Street program, it was months per se before we were made aware of it. And I do think there are several other groups that are doing the same work. So I too go back to what was mentioned last year. This is definitely a case of duplication of services, and I too would be in favor of cutting it.
Okay, I don't see other hands. Okay, we need to know an amount. Squire Muller.
Thank you, Judge. I have concerns also. I've talked to a lot of people, reached out to a lot of business owners downtown. I'm just not sure of, I think the new mission reads that we're going to focus on real estate ventures and working on parcel B, which I know that's pretty much going to be up to the developer. So I stand behind the other magistrates, so I guess we just need to figure out what that means. Thank you.
Okay, once again, now I've heard from 4 magistrates that want to cut, but haven't heard an amount. Anybody want to make an amount? Squire
Send
Booth.
them $5,000, but I'd be fine with that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Squire Moore. What'd you say?
Drop it to 5,000,
Okay, is there,
that'd be okay.
okay, that's the first amount on the table. Squire Blackburn?
Well, I was thinking drop it altogether.
Okay. Well, we've got, drop it 3,000 or drop it to 0. Squire Muller?
I'll support, Squire Blackburn, I believe. I think it is good customer services, and, I would rather see that money spent towards the youth and elders in our community, as we go down this list.
Squire Sebastian?
Sorry, Judge, I'm in a quandary on this because I can see both sides. I could certainly be with Squire Moore on this at 5,000, because I'm hearing, from my counterparts here about the duplication of services and also hearing from some local businesses downtown. I'm hearing trying to come up with the right way to say this. If the mission of downtown Frankfurt now has moved, has kind of maybe left some of the businesses wondering why this entity is working or how it is working for them. I'm kind of hearing that right now, so.
What do you want to do, Squire? Cut it out altogether or cut it 3,000? Need your thought.
Sure, I hear you, Judge. I'm pondering that heavily, I'll just have to tell you. Can you just give me one more second here on that?
Yeah. Squire Tracy?
Judge Wells, I'll go with, Squire Blackburn and Muller as well. Again, I think this is a clear case of duplication of services, and I would be in favor of going to 0 with them.
Squire Booth? I think we've already talked to you, haven't we, Squire Booth?
She didn't say how much.
Go ahead, Squire
Yes,
Booth.
you did. It was, since Squire Blackburn and Squire Mueller have broached the subject, I will go with them, drop it all together.
Okay. Squire Sebastian, you want to make a comment? Hold it. Unmute.
Sorry, I'm having to plug my phone up here, it's about to die. Sorry about that. So where are we? I'm really sorry, my phone is flashing, low battery.
Okay. What you said? Come back to you. You wanted a second before you made your final comment.
Yeah, so I think what's happened here is I've missed some of the discussion because this has gone down. So where are we? I just want to understand where we are.
We have 4 votes to cut it out completely.
Well, I would be for reducing some funding to it, but I could be at like 4,000. So that's where I'm going to be.
Okay. Let me say this, that for our community, as all of us gathered here, we talked about what's best for our community, and I'm not sure where I see the duplication of services. The people that I talk to in downtown appreciate downtown Frankfurt, but with that being said, one of the most popular events that downtown Frankfurt runs is our Friday night concert series that happens in the summer. Now, this year there is a problem. However, all of you have been down to it and part of it. And from what I understand, they do need this 8,000. Is it a game changer? Probably, it could be. But if we were to lose the Friday night events because of the cutting of this money and not supporting downtown Frankfurt, that'd be a shame. And we can discuss and argue and debate whether it's a duplication of service or the Main Street program was part of it or not. But all of you know, and this community hugely supports the Friday night concert series. I hope that in cutting this $8,000 out, it won't affect that program. And there's a couple other things too. The candlelight service and the Derby festivals. I appreciate what they do. I think downtown Frankfurt does a great job. But it's been said, so downtown Frankfurt has been cut to zero. The next item is the downtown events, and we've cut 20,000 out of that. Do you want to add to that, or anybody want to add to that? Money's back in on that.
I don't think there's gonna be any events this year anyway, so leave it at nothing.
Yeah. Squire Booth?
Well, let's put the 8,000 we took from their administrative costs, I guess, and put it into the events.
There's not gonna be any events.
Well, the downtown, concerts and the candlelight, shopping, and the Derby breakfast, those are part of what is headed by downtown Frankfurt. You know, I used to work for them, so I remember when they had one small page, well, it was a normal size page in their website, but I think we can take that 8,000 and put it into events, since we've already taken out the 20,000 for events, so we'll just put it into events, and then maybe they won't be so bereft.
Judge, may I say something here?
You may.
We're not gonna have any input on what they do down here. We're not contributing to them, so I don't see that as a good idea. We're not being a part of downtown, even though we're downtown. We're not gonna be a part of Downtown Inc. or whatever. So I wouldn't be for doing that. We've already unfunded them, so we're not part of them.
Okay. Is there anybody else that wants heard Squire Booth's recommendation? Anybody want to follow up on that? All right, Squire Muller.
I was just going to agree with Squire Moore. Unfortunately, with the current pandemic, excuse me, I don't think there's going to be any events, and under the financial burden that we are right now, I think next year's budget, you know, there's a strong possibility that we look at events and things like that, you know. But for right now, I'd like to leave that line item on zero.
Okay, so we're going to leave downtown events at zero. Downtown Frankfurt beautification, it was at 5,000. In last year's budget, it's been cut to 2,000. Squire Blackburn.
I want to touch on this. I know Squire Sebastian and I spoke about this last year quite a bit as far as the rest of the court, and she single-handedly spearheaded making sure that she got the Franklin County and Western Hills FFA programs involved in using flowers that were bought, grown, and cared for in our community. I know in the past that the flowers were coming out of Lexington. So I think she did a tremendous job on this, and I'd like to hear from her if the 2,000 is good, if because that's money being spent on our kids and makes our town a nicer place. So I appreciate her efforts in that, and she did a fantastic job.
Squire Sebastian, do you want to comment?
Yeah, you know, I was willing to, you know, and I remain willing to go out and try to work with groups to try to get a sponsorship. We wound up not having to do that, this past year because we were able to come up with $2,000 to do that, and the bourbon barrels have been planted, the hanging baskets are out. We didn't get to realize the full vision of this, to have the kids actually do the planting themselves, but they did tend to the plants in the greenhouse, so it was an amazing win-win for the kids. They are going to get to see the real fruits of their labor.
Okay. I'm sorry we lost you, Squire Sebastian. Squire Muller, in the years past, it's been your company that has put the flowers up.
Time when they're able to come out and be out in the downtown area. So, you know, the thing is we if they were really
Squire Sebastian, we
so
cannot
anyway,
hear you.
what I was saying is, you know, I'd be willing.
Okay. Squire Muller?
Okay, yes, sir. In the past, our company has performed those services. We were part of it from the ground up, and I appreciate that. After I was elected, I opted to step away from that because I never wanted there to be a conflict. When it came up that the high schools were going to do it, I was behind it. I helped supply, catalogs to buy seed and things like that. So I'm fine with keeping that at $2,000.
Okay, it's great. I'm glad to do it. Squire Sebastian, thank you, and thanks to Sean Pickens and the city Parks Department in planning them and making sure that everything got put up, so they're up and going. The next item is the Council on Aging, $70,000. Anybody want to cut or add to Council on Aging? Don't see anybody, so for time's sake, we're going to move on. We're going to keep it at $70,000. The next item is the Franklin County Youth Services Center. They requested, they were given $4,500 last year, and they're requesting $6,000. You'll need to speak up, Squire Muller. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what you're saying.
I would like to leave them the same, sir.
Okay.
That's $4,500.
$4,500. Anybody else want to see a cut or an addition to? Squire Booth?
I suggest that we raise it to 5,000.
Is there anybody want to do that? Squire Blackburn's okay with that?
Can I speak?
Oh, I'm sorry, Squire Blackburn. Yes, okay. Want to speak? Okay.
I've seen firsthand what the Friskies do at Franklin County High School and at Western Hills and at the elementary schools and middle schools. They do a tremendous amount of work. We have had one wonderful coordinator after another, and I was actually going to recommend bring it to 5,000. I'm glad Magistrate Booth did, and I agree with her 100%. So I'm at 5,000.
Okay. Anybody else for 5,000? Pardon me, Squire Moore? You will? Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
Judge Wells, I'm fine with that as well.
All right, we got 4. We're going to move it to the Youth Service Center from 45 to 5,000. Okay, thanks, guys. Frankfurt Arts Foundation, we cut them out last year, and they're requesting $1,000. Anybody want to give them $1,000 or any amount of money? Seeing none, we're going to leave it at 0. The next one is Frankfurt Tourism. We've been giving them 5,000, and they're asking for 5,000. Any, Squire Booth?
I understood that, from a previous meeting, that we were obligated to give them a certain amount of tourism. Is that not true?
Susan, you want to elaborate? Susan or Ann, you want to elaborate on that?
The only obligation I was talking about, Squire Booth, was handling their tax money. Other than that, I'm not aware of any obligation. This
Okay.
isn't tax money, this is county general revenue.
No, well then I say, strike it or bring it to 0.
Okay, you're for 0. Anybody else want to comment? Okay, seeing no comment, we're going to leave it at 5,000. Next item, the Josephine Sculpture Park. They requested 8,500. We approved 5,000 last year. Up or down? Don't.
Leave it the same.
Okay, don't see any changes on that. So we're going to keep the sculpture park at 5,000. The King Center requesting 5,000.
Leave it.
All right, we've got 4 on that one. Legal aid to the Bluegrass. We didn't approve them last year. They're asking for 3,500 again. Anybody want to give them any money or 3,500? Squire Muller, you want to say something?
I'm trying to refresh my memory as far as what their mission is, and it says, legal assistance and, advocating for victims of elderly, veterans, forces, and things like that. So I'm good at 1,000 for that.
I'll read it just for clarification. The legal aid of the Bluegrass Agency's mission is to provide high-quality legal assistance in civil legal services to low-income and other vulnerable populations, including domestic violence victims, the elderly, and veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces. This assistance is in the form of direct representation, education, advice, advocacy, and coordination with other agencies. So we have 1 to give for 1,000.
Judge, we have to help our veterans. I'm for leaving it. Give them 1,000.
JW?
I agree
All right.
wholeheartedly.
We've got 4 for $1,000 for legal aid of Bluegrass. 1,000 has been added in, okay? Mission Frankfurt Clinic. Everybody understand what happened with this? What this group does with the
Yes, it's a very, very good service.
only free clinic in Franklin County that provides for basic medical, dental, and pharmaceutical care to the uninsured of Franklin County.
I'm good with that, yes.
Yes, I'm good with that, Judge.
Okay. Do we have Squire Booth, Squire Tracy?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, we're good with that one. Mission, going to keep it at Nursing Home Ombudsman Agency. They were funded 2,500. We took that out last year, and now they're asking for 900. Squire Sebastian, sorry.
I'm gonna try this again. I was, right now, we know that this pandemic is sweeping through nursing homes, and it's taking a lot of our seniors. And this group, for individuals who may have no family or family very far away, they can be an advocate for those people who need assistance. So I'd like to see us put some funds to this. And I know they've asked for 900. I would certainly be willing to give them 5, but I could be persuaded by someone else to give them more. But I would like to see us give them some funds this time, based on, I think, what we're seeing across our country.
Squire Muller?
Yeah, I think kind of like Squire Sebastian said, you know, I think we need to worry about our elders and our youth, so I'm in for the 900, sir.
900 or 500?
900 for me.
900.
900. Squire Booth?
Well, Squire Sebastian just said what I was going to say. And I say that the coronavirus has affected everything, but it has been centered or has caused some headlines that nursing homes are a point of concern for the virus. So I think that we almost have to put more money into the ombudsman agency in order to appear that we care. You know, we do care, of course. I would say just leave it the same as it has been before, 2,500, so.
Well, I think we've got 4 votes for 900, Squire. Thank you.
Oh, well.
Okay.
all right.
The next item is project graduation. We give 500 to each school every year. This year was an anomaly, and I think they did some kind of drawings and helped out the seniors that way. Project graduation, 500 for each school. Squire Tracy?
Yes, that's fine.
Squire Tracy?
Do we have any idea if and when the event will be held?
Good question.
I don't know about that, sir.
That's for next year, so.
Yeah, this is for next year's budget, so this would not be
Right.
pertinent to that.
Right.
We've already paid this.
Squire Sebastian?
I do have one question. Now that there are 4 high schools, right? There's the Christian Academy. Is this only for, I just want a point of clarification. I just need to understand who this is for.
Public
Thank you.
schools. From the onset has always been public schools.
Okay, thank you.
Squire Blackburn?
This is a tremendous program. My class always donates a ton of work and builds projects to give to this organization event. This year, they're going to have to do it online. I know it doesn't affect the funding that we're speaking about now, but they were probably 50% underfunded this year because of the circumstances, and it hurt the senior class. It was a big deal. I'm for fully funding this at the current level we have now.
Okay. Squire Tracy, are you for it too?
Yeah, I am. That was my question, is just, you know, if and when. I didn't know if this current class was going to be able to have theirs. That's why I was asking. I'm sorry.
Okay, Squire Sebastian sounds like she's for it. Squire Moore?
I'm for it. Who's snoring? Somebody's asleep out there on the phone or something.
I don't see that. I don't know. It's not
You
me.
hear that?
Okay, project graduations to go for 1,500. Rosam, we've given 28. They're asking for 30.
I'm in for 28, Judge.
Okay,
I'm in for 28.
there's 3.
Yeah,
28.
me as well.
Rosam for 28. Salvation Army.
We only got 3, didn't we?
No, Lambert raised his finger too.
Oh,
I'm sticking with the 1,000 from last year. I'm trying to
Okay,
stay
Salvation
with that.
Army's 1,000. Squire Tracy.
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's 4 for 1,000 for Salvation Army. Save the Grand, 10,000. Squire Booth, you're for 10. Hold it. Unmute, Squire Booth. Unmute. Squire Tracy, are you wanting to say something? I can't get Squire.
I'm sorry. I had my sound muted. Isn't 10,000 an increase from
No.
past?
No.
Oh, well, keep it then.
Okay. Squire Tracy?
I was gonna say due to the uncertainties of when they may open and with the pandemic that's going on, I wouldn't mind going to 5,000.
Squire Muller?
Can I have a question? At the beginning of our meeting, sir, I think Susan was talking about a loan or something they have with us, a bond, or,
Yeah.
can somebody explain that to me?
Yeah.
please?
Susan, you want to explain
Squire
that?
Muller, this is the treasurer. I did reach out to the Grand Theater manager, and it looks like it's approximately $1,750,000 left in principal on the bond. It was issued for 25 years, so technically it could go to 2032, but the outstanding principal is $1,750,000.
And Squire Muller?
Thank you very much, Susan. Judge, I think with the uncertainties, and I know nothing's gonna happen until probably the end of this year, I'll go with Squire Tracy. I'm with 5, because I think they're only gonna probably be able to do, next spring, so I think it's
Court, if I may,
Yes.
there may also be concern that should be, or something that should be considered, that this organization does respond to it's a revenue bond. So it's based on the tax from a tourism tax of 2%, and tourism, that is down, and their receipts through that, through the revenue, aspect of it, through that tax, are going to be down. It may have an impact on their ability to make timely payments with their bond, or some impact there that should be considered, where this money may help to offset and alleviate the economic impact on the tax side. I don't know all the details of it. I think that they were ahead in their principal payments, but interest payments would also, be a factor as well.
That's right. The revenue is definitely going to be down, paying towards it's like they have a house. They mortgaged the house. They mortgaged that. They built the Grand Theater, and they're paying for what that cost was. The $10,000 that we give, the money that they make through the processes, and the money that they get from the city, is to maintain the operation as say, because they don't hire. They only have one employee, and everything else is done by volunteers. So there's all kinds of maintenance that needs, i.e. Utilities and everything else. So that's where this money goes, from my understanding. Squire Blackburn?
I agree with you, Judge. I was a little naive in this last year. I saw that line item and said, save the grant. I thought it was already saved, but, that's silly now. But, I've spent some time there. They do a tremendous job. I know that one paid staff member, he does everything from marketing to cleaning the toilets. I know several people in our community that volunteer to do ticket and window sales, clean and sell popcorn. The revenue that they're gonna lose, from not being open is gonna be a big deal. And, like the treasurer stated, their bond is a revenue bond, and that's how they pay, on their payments. So I think we might put them in some danger if we reduce that funding. And there's a whole lot of effort and energy and money put into that, and I hate to see it suffer. So I'm at staying the same.
Okay. Squire Moore?
Yes, I agree with the treasurer and Squire Blackburn. I think this would be the worst time to cut them. And what they get from the taxes, they get a hotel tax, so there's nobody in our hotels. They don't get any money, so I think this would be the worst time ever to cut them.
Okay, we've got 2, and I'll add myself to that to make 3 to keep it the same. Anybody else?
You've got 4, you got got Blackburn, Moore, and Booth.
Blackbird, who? Squire, Sebastian? Sebastian? Squire Sebastian?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. In light of what the treasurer has shared, I think it would be a really tough time to cut them at this point. So I'm gonna throw my lot, cast.
I'm sorry, we didn't get what you said, Squire, Sebastian. You cut out. Okay, for the, keeping it the same, the 10,000. Okay? All right, so we're gonna keep it the same. The next item is the Simon House. They got 4,000 last year and they're asking for 4,000 again. There's one for 4,000, two for 4,000, three. We got 4,000.
I'm good to keep the rest of the list all the same, if we wanna just run through the next four. But that's just me.
Okay. Everybody else, okay with? Everybody else, everybody else okay with the same? There's 2, 3, 4. Okay. So the Simon House will get 4,000. The Sunshine Center and Family Abuse Services will get 10,000. Thornhill will get 8,000. Franklin County Women and Family Shelter will get 13,000. All right.
You had a new request. It's on the end of that sheet, the Wanda Joyce Robinson Foundation.
I don't see it. It's not on here.
It's not, it's on your,
It's where we were. Okay.
just, you may not have to substitute on adding any new ones.
Okay. There is a request for the, but it doesn't say.
It didn't say how much.
Okay, so I'm not gonna accept that, okay. Bourbon on the Banks, I think that's up in the air, so I guess they'll have to come up, but we're not sure how that's all gonna come about. They got 3,000 last year and they're not, we don't see anything, so we'll bring that back up as that unfolds, if it does unfold, okay? So everybody understand where we are. Susan, you have the cuts and the additions on the agencies. Do you have any questions, Susan?
No, sir, just to clarify, that drops that line item by $5,600. So on page 5, where you have that general charity and welfare line item, that goes from $131,000 to $125,400 because the senior center and the CASA are separate, isolated line items with no changes.
Okay.
Susan, can you repeat that?
Susan, she's asking you to
On
repeat
page
it.
5, your line item for general charity and welfare goes from $131,000 down to $125,400. So I'll make that change in our master document. So you reduced it by $5,600.
Okay, the next item is there's been a request to cut all part-time employees, and if we do that, that will include the coroner's assistants, the friend of the court, the sheriff bailiffs at the courthouse, two people at the front desk here, one person in the accounting office, 9 at the golf course. It was 6, but Charlie reduced it to 3 at the park. So we're going to have quite a large amount of people to cut out as part-timers, and So Squire Muller, that was your suggestion, so I'll let you comment.
Sir, no, I just suggested the part-timers in the fiscal court building in the park. I didn't want to touch corridor or the lawyers or any of those people.
Okay. Squire, let me ask you this, Squire Muller, you've been a big advocate for the park. How would we run the golf course if we had no employees to run the golf course?
Well, I think we had talked about making the tee time reservations online, to pay online. We only need the one person in the office. I still think the carts are gonna cost us more using them, having to clean them. I think the carts should be available for handicap only and not even used carts. It's only a 9-hole course. And I think letting the roughs and things, grow up, like we had talked about, is a great starting point. I don't know if anybody else wants to mention anything, but, I love our park. I'm up there all the time. I just think it can be done. And I don't want to do any cuts there. We're in bad times right now.
You're not, I mean, but you were only gonna save, you're not gonna save that much money, but
We've got a golf cart lease payment.
yeah, we do have a golf cart lease payment, so we're still paying for those carts. And, that is true. And remember, a 9-hole course, there's only 100 yards at the most, except for one hole between the between the green and the tee box. So there's not. So you're saying that we keep all of that area in the let it all grow up.
I'm not a golf course person. I just know that, I can talk with Charlie about the whole park overall. I mean, if that's what you want me to do, I mean, I'm happy to input and get with maybe Kenny Bishop and look at some things and maybe Squire Moore is willing to meet out there because he's talking about it also. I just think we can make some changes and make it work. So.
Okay. Are there 4 votes to cut all the part-time people here at the fiscal court and at the park?
Judge, this is the treasurer.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to clarify with Squire Muller, is he including the accounting office as a fiscal court part-time position to cut?
Yes, I had it down, Susan. I know you're going to be mad at me. Yeah.
I'll speak very strongly against that, and I think that the state auditor would back that up if any of you all are interested. I know Squire Blackburn is very familiar with the office of the state auditor, and I received a newsletter from them just a few days ago about managing financial risk during a pandemic. And the very first article is specifically about segregation of duties and about the chaos and the diversion of people's attention and government leadership and away from some of these tasks because the mission of the actual disaster is so great, but there's a financial aspect to every single operation of government, and even more so during a disaster. And this position provides critical oversight for basically a single person office where we have suffered from segregation of duties for so long, and now finally have something in place that gives us a very high level individual who is providing very efficient service and for the county and on behalf of the county. And in fact, the financial responsibilities are going to increase as we are faced with handling additional relief funds through the disaster and ongoing reporting and the checks and balances that another set of eyes that are skilled to know what's going on will provide. And the loss of that would be, I think, a very, very, very big mistake to shortchange financial management at this time.
Squire Moore?
I agree with Susan, and I also would not want people just wandering through the building unannounced. I think we need those people out there for that reason alone, not to mention the answering the phones and directing calls and all that. We would have to buy a phone service. Might even cost us half of their salary. And I think that, as far as the park, Charlie said he could get by with 3 part-timers and let some of the rough grow up, and I'm sure we can come up with a way to get people to cut that for the hay. I would think so. If not, we'd have to bush hog it twice a year or something. But still, it wouldn't be the same as keeping mowed constantly. And there's not going to be a fair this year. I know one year they didn't mow it, and they bush hogged it right at fair time, and it caused a fire hazard. People parking on fresh cut hay like that. So I don't think there's going to be a fair this year, so that won't be an issue. But I think cutting it for hay is probably the best idea on that. So I wouldn't be for cutting out all part-timers, no.
Okay. Anybody else? Squire Booth?
Thank you, Judge. I am in support of Susan Lawrence and our treasurer. Gosh, if she can get some help and some logical reasoning and be able to express that logical reasoning, that is a worthy goal. And I say she needs that help that she has now. Don't cut it back. All right.
Okay,
That's all I have to say.
Squire Sebastian?
Yes, Judge, thank you. I do have a question, because I understood, and this goes back to a point of Squire Moore's, that we have bought some kind of very elaborate phone system that allows for the transferring and responding to calls throughout multiple facilities. And I had a question about how was the front area handled before. Did we not have existing staff answering the phone? I just want to make sure I understood it before the part-time staff came on. I just want to kind of understand, because I don't know how far back that goes, or if it's always been that way, or if somebody could just help educate me on that part. Thank you.
I'll be happy to. Prior to that, we hired, the previous judge hired somebody to come in and work part-time, and they were paid twice what our people were paid. Also, the planning and zoning office operated Robert Hewitt, Eric Cockley at the time, and Leslie Hibbets operated the front desk when that part-time person had to go to lunch, and it was hugely inefficient. And I came in and I said, we're not going to do this anymore. Yeah, I think it's important. I firmly believe that when somebody calls in the fiscal court office, that they get a live person, and that live person can talk to them and help direct them where they need to go, the issues that they have. There are consequences when you cut people out. And I think all of you've been here long enough to know that there's not fluff in the people that we have in the fiscal court. There's no fluff here. And everybody's doing many different jobs. And so the consequence of cutting the people out, the receptionists out in the front, will come back and bite all of us, because people will, yes, to answer your question about what your thoughts are on the phone system, there is a way to do a phone tree. And it will say, for the judge's office, push 1. For planning and zoning, press 2. And yes, that is fine if that's what you like, but it's not black and white. So what part of planning and zoning do you want? And so there are a lot of issues, and I think it's a great public service. And I'm sure that at the state where you work, Sherry, If the schools would not be able to survive where you work, Squire Blackburn, if you didn't have somebody answering the phone. Squire Muller, I know people answer the phone at your business. This is a public service to people to have somebody there. And it's a little amount of money, my goodness. $22,000 to have somebody answer the phone. Squire Muller, I've said enough. What would you like to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say, we can move on, obviously. I just, at this point, we've only got, I think, 5% overall the budget, everyone else is at 20, 25%, I'm saying 15. 80% or so of our budget is personnel. I mean, it's nothing I'm trying to do to be a bad person, so, but it doesn't look like I have support, so let's just keep moving, okay?
Okay. All right, Squire Tracy.
Thank you, Judge Wells. It is tough, and we've got decisions like this that we have to make. I would echo what Squire Muller has said. We're trying to brace ourselves for a financial crisis, and we have difficult decisions in front of us. Some decisions are not popular, but they have to be made. Again, I think as leaders, we have to be creative, and we've got to come up with plans. Obviously, the soccer fields at Lakeview aren't being used, but they're continually being mowed. So I think as far as the park, I think it just needs to be looked at, broke down, priority-wise. And I do think there's ways to get it done. The guys out there are working hard. I know it. I see them about every day. So, but again, I do echo what Squire Muller has said. So, but obviously, if the votes aren't there, they're not there.
Betty Jo would like to speak.
Judge Wells, this is Betty Jo. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Hi, Betty.
Okay. Hello. I'm sorry. I'm traveling to the woods, so I want to say something about the receptionist up front. When we had the administrative assistant in planning and zoning up front, at that time, planning and zoning was not busy. When you came into office, the community started building, and the administrative assistant could not perform both of those job duties once that happened. So that was another reason that we was wanting to add a full-time position up front, because the administrative assistant could not handle the extra workload brought in from planning and zoning. And we decided to hire 2 part-time employees because it would save us, I don't want to be quoted on it, but it was a lot of money because it was going to be paying full-time salary and full-time benefits. So, and secondly, I'm concerned about the safety up front of citizens just walking straight through the office, especially now. So those are my 2 concerns with that. And also, they don't only just answer the phones and greet these citizens. When we have extra job duty, occupational tax, they help stuff envelopes. They helped the judge's office. There's times that treasurer needed the receptionists up front. I needed them during time to put packets together for me. So their job duties are not only answering the phones and greeting the citizens. So I have a very concern with that, especially now. I don't see how we could get rid of those 2 positions. That's my opinion on that. Also, keep in mind, court, we are 100% reversible employer of unemployment. So if you all decide to cut those positions, we will be paying those wages at 100% for, I believe, it's 6 months on unemployment. And some employers, businesses, and they pay a premium each year. We don't pay that premium. We pay 100% of those wages. And also, there's other areas. I'm sorry if I didn't hear you all on that, but we've got a part-time coroner administrative assistant. We've got a part-time friend of the court administrative assistant. They would have to speak on, if they're able to lose those positions also. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Betty, be safe traveling through the woods. Wherever you're going, just be safe. Be careful. Thank you for your comments. Okay, I think we've run that one. Now, here's the question. On May the 28th, we meet again. Are you, as a court, ready to do a first reading on the budget on May the 28th? And I'll go down the line. We'll go once again. I'll go back through and call on each one of you to make a comment or what needs to be said, because once we make the first reading, we can't change very much at all. A little bit, and I don't know, I'm not going to be able to define what a little bit is, but the very little changes can be made without having to go back and do another first reading. Remember, we have a June 30th deadline. So, with that being said, Squire Muller, you're first up on the board to talk about moving forward for May 28th.
Unfortunately, Judge, when I came on the office, my thing was to kind of balance the budget. I've asked for the 15%. We're at about 5%, so I'm a no, sir.
Okay, who was second? I'm sorry. Where is that sheet? Squire Booth. Let me have it.
I thought we were voting on the first reading in this meeting. I thought that's why we had this meeting.
No, we didn't think anybody'd be ready to.
I want to have a vote on the first reading, or vote if we can, of course, on the first reading.
On the 28th?
No, today.
We're not having it today. We can't have it today because this is a special meeting.
This work session meeting.
Okay. Squire Tracy.
Judge, unfortunately, I don't think so. I still think there's areas in the room we just got to dig into, and hopefully the department heads will bear with us and dig into it with us. I just think there's more room to really tighten this up. So, thank you.
Squire Moore.
I'm okay with it, Judge.
Squire
I know it's gonna
Sabat.
be-
I'm sorry, Squire Moore. Go ahead. Continue on.
I know it's gonna be a lot of concern throughout the year to see what's gonna happen next. But I think with our department heads, keeping an eye on everything and you overseeing them, us keeping up with it also, I think we'll be fine.
Okay. Squire Sebastian.
So if we have another meeting, could it be next week, at some point? Just to see what figures now, if Susan, works on this spreadsheet, updates it, gets that back out to our group so we can see where we are. Because at this point, we've talked about a number of things. I'd like to see a new spreadsheet, before I would feel comfortable saying blanket statement without seeing a new spreadsheet that we would be ready for that first reading. I really would like to see that.
Okay. Squire Blackburn.
These are tough decisions. I would hate to lose any part-time, but we see local governments all over laying off all kinds of folks. It's kind of one of the reasons that I didn't want to go with pay raises during the pandemic, because I didn't want to lose people later. Right now, I think we can buckle a little bit tighter. I just don't want us to put ourselves in a worse position by not tightening the belt tighter in the beginning, because we don't know where this is going. So I'd like to see everything on the spreadsheet again. I think if we had one more meeting, we could probably pull it together. But right now, I'm not comfortable with going forward with what we've got.
Okay. Sounds like the majority of you want to go to another meeting. Are you okay? Our next court meeting is on the 28th, which is a Thursday at 5 o'clock. Do you want to meet before that time, on that day? Squire Moore, you okay meeting at 2 hours before 3 o'clock? Okay, is that your suggestion?
Judge,
Yes, ma'am.
I need clarification on what additional changes to make. The only concrete number I had was on your general charity welfare line. It was my understanding, if we're working in this, draft variety today, that I called the spending freeze proposed budget, this version here, the only, which has all the cuts in the, to the lines, with the decreases in the lines, including the road, but no other numbers changed. It was my understanding also with, using the figures of the spending freeze, that incorporated, some part-time cuts in the golf course. Maybe if that's what we're talking about, clarifying there, because there was,
There were three.
$5,700 cut in part-time in the golf course and those salaries. So unless I need very specific,
Here's specific.
Want to see in a new document.
You are correct. 5,700 was what when Charlie said that, he would bare bones to cut 3 seasonal park people out, that cut $5,700. So, these part-time people don't cut a lot. Let me say this to the squires. When you cut these part-time people, they're the best bang for the buck, because we're not paying all the other benefits to them. So they're the savings in the budget.
But there's a cost associated for our
So,
employees.
they're the savings because they provide the work at half the cost. Squire Moore?
Judge, I'd also like to add that, I don't know if we need to make a decision. I mean, we can't make a decision right now. I know that's not in the cards, but, if any if there's any thoughts out there, majority that want to make changes to KCDC's budget, that needs to come forward right now.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. You're exactly right.
And we have to-
Because really, actually, Rick, are you on the line? They can only up or down it. Isn't that correct, Rick?
Right, so we need to,
Yes, sir. The only thing that the court can do after presentation of KCDC's budget is to up and down it. Now, of course, that's the formal action. That does not preclude the court from making comments or requesting certain changes, but the formal action of the court is an up and down vote as presented.
Okay,
exactly, that's,
good point. Thank you, Squire.
And we've got to pay unemployment on the part-time people, so you're not saving that much.
Squire Sebastian. I'm not talking anymore.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge. I think, we've all talked about the uncertain times that we're in. And I think, when we had the executive director of KCDC, and I will say this, I am certainly a proponent for economic development. I think we want to have that. When the executive director of KCDC came and presented before us, there was discussion of, I think one of the magistrates asked,
We can't hear you, Squire Sebastian.
what jobs have you brought to the front this past year? I think we were told some jobs at Goodwood Brewing, which as I understood from everything, I'm trying not to acting up, but it's acting up. We
can't hear you, Squire Sebastian.
Okay, I'll try again. Is it coming through at all?
Barely.
Hello?
We're hearing you now.
Sorry.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I guess bottom line, where I would be with KCDC, I'd like to see them at about the $100,000 mark based on, I think, what we've seen the last year of, And I don't know that we have a great plan for what our economic development focus is. I haven't really seen that come through. So I'd be right at 100,000. Thank you.
Squire Booth?
I agree with, Squire Sebastian, the fact that she has time to do another community's economic development and get paid for it means that I think she is not doing all she can for Franklin County. And Franklin County needs that income coming in. So, we should decrease the budget to show our displeasure.
Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry that you said that, because she did that on her own time in the evening, so, I mean, she's got tons of time. Squire Moore, did you have your hand up?
No, I did not.
All right. So, are there 4 votes, now 2 more votes to cut it from 115 to 100? Squire Muller, you want to cut it from 115 to 100?
Yes, sir.
Squire Tracy?
Ultimately, I guess we're just giving direction, so.
Yeah.
I guess ultimately what we're saying is she needs to go back to the
Yeah.
board.
Yeah. Squire Tracy?
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. I think she needs to go back and see if she can't tighten the belt as well.
Okay, so I will direct KCDC to cut from 115 to 100,000. And that will be on the May 28th. I don't know if she can get a board meeting to have that done. So Susan, that needs to be reflected in the budget. Okay. Are
Yes,
there any?
Judge, I reflected that. Now, let me recap here. So I have a change on that line item to deduct $5,000. And then we had the general charities and welfare line item, which we decreased by $5,600. The discussion about the part-time right now, there was, in the version that we have today already, the park director had cut $3,000 on seasonal co-op.
I thought you said 5,700.
on seasonal co-op for the park. I'm not sure what additional, if the court is directing for additional cuts in the seasonal co-op line items here,
We're leaving it as it is with the cuts in there.
okay. So the document version that would be compiled will be based on the draft numbers that we have today? Yes?
Yes. What we've
With these two changes that we've made.
that is correct. Is there anybody else that wants to say anything? So we're going to meet at 3 o'clock on the 28th to relook at the budget, and hopefully you today did a budget, Susan. At the end, you were able to recap all of the figures, so you could do that on the 28th, and we could have the changes implemented for first reading at the 5 o'clock fiscal court session. Is that correct?
So just looks like it's 27,457,008 with the feedback that I was given today.
I'm saying if there are other changes at the budget work session at 3 o'clock on that day.
Prior to our first reading.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's really important, though. I mean, if everybody's going to want to see another hard document after other critical changes, then we need to agree on that, we can have that first reading on Friday, the
Yes.
28th. Or
Yes.
whatever day, is that a Thursday? Thursday
That's a
the
Thursday,
28th.
yes.
We need that first reading before June 1st.
Yep,
Before June 1st. We need, the Department for Local Government has to have time to review this and get it back to us. And there's some sort of 20-day rule in there, I believe, in the statute, isn't there, correct, for the timing. So we're really cutting it close, even with the 28th. So we have to have that first reading on the 28th. If there are significant changes that anyone wants to make, I would really like to hear them. I'll go back and look at that part-time line item for the utilization, and if that's what you want. It's not, I'm not getting all the hours that I would like because of the restrictions. So, but I'm willing to, to take that down a couple of $1,000s, but I need that line, I need that person, I need that line item to stay in there. Not maybe I can cut down, 10% squalor mower, and that would take it down to $18,000. I've already cut $5,000 out of it. So I think that would get it to the percentage.
Susan, we've already
Yes.
discussed all this, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking for specifics.
Well, we don't know,
Before-
we're ending the meeting now, and we've gone through, so that's why we're gonna meet on Thursday at 3 o'clock to get more specifics. If they have some more, then maybe they could email us and let us know. Okay. We've now gone 30 minutes over, and so, we need a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn.
All right, is there a second? Squire Booth, call the roll.
I need to hear them.
Squire Booth, would you say, Squire Booth, say yes? Motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Squire Sebastian, which she did text us, and she's lost her webcam and her voice. Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes, we are adjourned. May 28th, 3 o'clock. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice Memorial Day weekend.
Did you want to?
Stay dry.